Hello again! It's been about a month since my last video, but thankfully I have new progress to share with you today. Life has been hectic and sometimes it gets harder and harder to balance my passions with my full-time work and responsibilities. So let's get a refresher on the progress I've made so far in my first 2 episodes of the Wizards Keep Devlog before getting on to what's new. In my first 2 episodes, I showed my initial progress in basic enemy tracking and movement. I added damage text and a fire projectile that successfully damages the little goblins you see on screen. I have a critical hit chance for the player, and the damage text itself changes color depending on if it's a normal hit or a critical hit. And also, the text will change to red if it's a hit on the player. Last episode, I talked about wanting to make hits on enemies feel better and more impactful, and that I want to mess around with shaders and other effects. So let's get to what I've been working on. I started by adding pathfinding to my enemies, allowing for these little goblins to collide with the water tiles on screen instead of just walking over them. I have the debug line shown so that you can see the real-time pathfinding in action. While this did help with the enemy movement, this caused tremendous lag and meant that only about 20 enemies or so could be loaded in before the game started suffering from lag spikes. Not something you want from a genre of game where tons of enemies and projectiles should be flying on screen at any given time. So that's an issue that I will need to resolve. The next attempt in making the game feel better is using a damage flash animation. This is a shader that triggers when the player damages an enemy. This addition, alongside making the enemy stop moving for a small period of time to make it seem like it's recoiling in pain, gives the enemies a bit more life in my eyes. And if you want to learn how I did it, I've linked the video I used as a tutorial in the description below. I then decided to mess with GPU particles in Godot. If you don't know what GPU particles are, they're a really fun node built into the Godot engine that, in this case, turns a pretty bland fire projectile into something much more exciting and dynamic. I even scrapped the old enemy elite shader in favor of GPU particles. If you remember, enemies have a 5% chance to spawn as an elite version of themselves, which means they're stronger versions, they deal more damage, more health, etc. To visually cue the player into the fact that there's something different, I put a shader on elite enemies that makes them all red as a placeholder. But now, elite enemies no longer have that complete red color to them, but have a trail of golden sparkles. And while better in my opinion, I still worry that the elites don't stand out enough. The last addition I made was a shader for the water. I found a water shader online that I've linked in the description below again, and I made some slight changes to the code. Now it only affects the color of my specific water and not any of the colors in the rest of the tile set, and it's not as turbulent as the default water shader. Hopefully the water shader breaks up some monotony in the water without drawing the player's eye away too much. And that's all the new additions so far. If you want to keep up with the pixel art I'm drawing in Sprite, then check out my Game Dev and Chill playlist of videos. There's no talking in those videos, and I talked about them last episode, but it's meant to be something or a way to share my progress while providing something to have on in the background. So what should you expect to come next in the next devlog episode? I need to see how to simplify the code attached to my enemies, as it's probably too bloated. That plus the pathfinding is what I think is causing my lag issues. And another part that I want to improve is on my bare bone menus. Right now they serve as good placeholders, but I want to start making slightly more polished and thematic UI, including a custom cursor. If you enjoyed hearing me talk about my progress on my first ever indie game, please consider subscribing and liking the video. I once again apologize for the hiatus, and let me know in the comments what helps you maintain momentum when working on a passion project. Keep an eye out for more videos, and I'll see you next time.